Welcome to Brandon's Face, everybody. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I'm Brandon May.
And this is our first Album of the Year episode for 2022. On this episode, Brandon and I will be sharing each of our top 5 EDM albums of the year before getting into some honorable mentions. But before we do all that, I want to briefly talk about the genre in 2022 as a whole. 2021 was an incredible year in EDM. We saw releases from Porter Robinson, Flight Facilities, Jungle, Gaspard Auger, Rezz, Zoo, Boys Noise, SG Lewis, and more. How do you think this year measures up to last year?
I don't know, man. Last year really had some mega releases, man. You just named them, and this year had some great releases too, man. It was just different, you know.
It was different. I think maybe what this year lacked in big names, it made up for in the quality of the albums that we got.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I really don't know what my personal expectations for this year were. This genre can be all over the place from year to year, so I've come to never expect consistency when it comes to artists releasing albums in this genre, but
Right.
these last 2 years are showing that might be a thing of the past now. And on paper, I wouldn't expect this year to top last, and I don't think it did, but it came a lot closer to topping it than I thought it would. We not only saw some of the artists I mentioned earlier release new projects already, we saw some long dormant artists return to the genre, and some up-and-comers release new projects and continue to make a name for themselves. So when you look back on this year, what is your thought of the state of EDM in 2022?
I think the state of EDM is finally returning to house. I think that we have had in the past decade, we've had a lot of bass music be really prolific. And I think we've had a lot of interesting side projects. And we've talked a little bit about, different collaborations with other bass musicians, and I think that
Yeah.
we're getting a little. I think that we're getting better with, or we're getting a little bit more house music, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and I personally really like that.
I do as well, man. I feel like house is always the root of EDM. And I don't know if I said the words electronic and dance at all in this podcast yet, but maybe I should. For anybody that doesn't know, which I'm sure everyone does, EDM stands for electronic slash dance music. And I say slash because I don't think all electronic music is dance music, and I don't think all dance music is electronic music. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a few of our lists this year, I think we might be conflating some genres. Pop will have a little bit of everything, but this one should be pretty straightforward. With all of that out of the way, man, you ready to get into our lists?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, we will be going from number 5 to number 1 with honorable mentions afterwards. First up, we will start with your number 5, which is Bob Moses's The Silence in Between. This is their third full-length album and first since their 2020 EP Desire, which is my least favorite release of theirs. This album is significantly better than that EP was, and a great listening experience from start to finish. How are you feeling about this one this many months later?
It actually gets played quite a bit when my wife and I are doing some housework. I purchased the vinyl, and we play it pretty constantly. It didn't show up on my Spotify Wrapped this year because of that.
That makes a lot of sense, and that is a very Brandon thing. I think Love Brand New is easily one of the best electronic dance songs of the year, but I think that there's some album cuts on that album that are phenomenal, and it might be my favorite project of theirs to date. I just really enjoyed that one a lot.
I really liked this album. I think they do a really good job of defining themselves. I'm going to throw a link to their live set that they did in the show notes here. They did I think it was, now I'm trying to think. I think it was out there outside LA or outside San Diego. They took this old abandoned radio tower and turned it into a multi-level Bob Moses party. And it's just them. It's not a bunch of people partying or anything like that, but it is a beautiful set. And I watched it again, I want to say a few weeks ago, and fell back in love with this set because of A, the set list, B, how much energy they can provide in such subdued house music, and I
Yeah.
really really enjoy it, man, and I really enjoy their music, and I look forward to everything that they do again or in the future. But I've really been enjoying The Silence Between.
Yeah, me too, man. Great album. Definitely made me more of a fan if I wasn't already. Next up, we have my number five, which is Rezz's Nightmare on Rezz Street 2 mix. And I know this one is technically a mix that just happens to be comprised of mostly new and unreleased music, but I am considering it an album. I enjoyed it as much, if not more, than some of the albums I have ahead of it. But since it's technically a mix, I'm putting it at five. The run she's been on these past few years has been unreal, and this only adds to her already insane legacy. What are your thoughts on this one?
I really, really liked this album when it came out, man. I don't think it quite hit my top five, but I really liked it, man. You're right. The run she's been on these last couple of years has been insane, and I'm really happy for her. I remember one of the first singles she ever put out. I was just entranced. I was like, oh wow, this is some talent. And I think she signed to
Yeah.
Mousetrap for those few, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but that record label and Joel himself has a really good ear for up and coming talents. So I think whoever that or whatever record label ended up releasing that first single of hers really helped put her on the map here. She's been doing festivals for a long time, and she just kills it at every single one.
Yep.
It's funny. Almost every single time I look up reactions to specific festivals, Rezz always gets mentioned, man. If she's there, she gets mentioned in some of the top moments of the weekend or the festival. So, and I'm not even surprised even a little bit.
I would expect no less. And speaking of the show notes, we should definitely throw her set that she did from Rezz Rock in there. She released that on her YouTube in full. So
Most
everyone should
definitely.
check that out if they have not already. All right, moving on. We have your number four and my number two, which is Kavinsky's Reborn. This was a highly anticipated album for me. My wife and I are very big fans of his first album, so I not only look forward to his releases to break them down with you, but to also enjoy them with her. But 9 years away had me wondering if we would ever hear new Kavinsky again. We not only got new music, but we got one of the best albums of the year for any genre, for what it's worth. How
Yep.
are you feeling about this one today?
Again, I purchased the vinyl record, right? And in fact, I actually don't play this as much as the Bob Moses one because it kind of puts me in. There's certain artists that put me in the chair to listen to them, and he's one of them because of just ju- how much of an atmosphere he creates makes me want to actively listen to it. And this album
Yeah.
really did that, man. It's a really good record, man. It's a really good album.
Yeah, his music has always been great at transporting me to a different place as well. I think he's very good with aesthetic, even in the terms of the packaging, the artwork, the videos. Everything he does is very on purpose, and I appreciate his attention to detail.
Right.
From there, we can move on to my number four, which is Flume's Palaces, an album I know you do not have on vinyl, Brandon.
Sure don't. Won't ever.
Uh, I know this album can be challenging to get into, but I still maintain that it's a great album. If you're a fan of Flume, which I am, I think all three of his full-length albums are fantastic, but they all seem to be a love it or hate it type of album. I have not met a lot of people who are in the middle when it comes to Flume. I don't think this album is as good as Skin was, but I think it's a worthy entry into his discography and one of the best EDM albums to come out this year, which is why I'm putting it at my number four. Any
Well,
thoughts on this? Have you returned to this at all?
yeah, I actually listened to it. I want to say like a month or two ago,
Okay.
just to see if I was crazy. It's funny, like you said, it's either a love it or hate it thing, and I'm normally not in any of those camps. I think I have a good enough ear to discern what, or at least appreciate like our artistic endeavors like what Flume
Yeah.
does. I just don't though. So like I've tried, man. I don't quite get it, but I'm very happy that you enjoyed it. And I'm happy that he gave
Thank
you
you.
a top 4 album of the year. because I don't know if he had released Skin this year, it would probably be number 1 or 2 for you, but maybe 2 or 3. But
Possibly. There's a Vince Staples feature on Skin I've heard.
I know.
So maybe one. Who
Well,
knows?
I'm just glad that his fans are eating. That's all that really matters, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I really like it. I think his fan base should be satisfied with this one, but I feel like maybe not in this episode, but there might be some disagreements we have that I'll be willing to die on a hill for, and convincing you to like Flume is just not one of them. I get it. I get it, man. All right, we'll go to your number 3 pick, which is Chase and Status. What came before? Man, this one caught me by surprise when it came out back in June. It was not on our schedule of releases to cover, but I threw it on anyways and ended up really enjoying it. I have not circled back to this one as much as I'd like to, but Mixed Emotions has been in my rotation all year. So I was really excited when you put this on your list because it meant I got to revisit it, which I greatly enjoyed. I take it you've been enjoying this much more than I anticipated if you have it at number 3.
Yes, I really liked this album, man. I actually went and revisited it a couple of months ago when I was preparing for this show, trying to see, because I remember I rated it pretty highly. I actually went back and listened to our review of it, and I think I gave it an 8. And I think it deserves a 9, man. I'm actually going to move that on up to a 9 because it is spectacular. The way the arrangements are, the way the vocals are done, the way it's just produced, and it feels so natural. And that's, in my opinion, pretty hard to create as a drum and bass artist for it to feel natural. Yeah. And it does. They really brought it together on this one, man. When did you revisit it? Recently?
Oh yeah. I revisited it when you sent me your list of your top 5 for this podcast, and I revisited it. I want to say when I was putting together an EDM playlist like a month or 2 ago, because Mixed Emotions is always top of my mind when I'm thinking of this year in EDM.
It's a really good track, man.
I think that their cover art got nominated for a Cover Art of the Year award. I don't know what publication's doing it, but fuck yeah, that's my type of award, and yes, they deserve it. That's fantastic.
It was really cool, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, so many people do that type of cover, the crowd shot, but that's art, man. They got it.
Yeah, in fact, didn't Jid do that this year with the Forever Story, and I still like Chase's Status is better.
Yeah, no, they fucking knocked it out of the park, man. They did an excellent job, and I think you're right. I think the more I learn about EDM and what's great and what's not, I agree. This is definitely a 9. It's a 5-star album for sure.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to my number 3 pick. We have Alison Wonderland's Loner. I've really liked her previous 2 albums, but this is the first one that I've loved. She took some chances on this album and opened up a little bit more on a personal level. I think those risks paid off because the results are incredible. This album is heavy, beautiful, chaotic, and it's not only my favorite album of hers to date, but easily one of the best EDM albums of the year for me. I think you had this one in your honorable mentions, correct?
I sure did. I think it might come in at number 6 or 7 if I was really doing a top 10 or something like that. But yeah, it is very good.
It is very good, and much like Rezz, she seems to be a highlight of every festival that she's on.
Yeah, like I've been saying throughout the year, because we've really gotten a whole year of Alice in Wonderland whether it be singles that she was dropping for the album, mm-hmm. or the album itself when it came out, really just a few months ago, right? I feel like it was yesterday. It's she played around with some textures that people are probably scared to do because they're hard to do. They're hard to make work. And she really made them all work, man.
She did.
Everything was done really well on this album. I'm glad you're enjoying it so much, man.
Yeah, man, I am. Quick side note, checked out that Metro Boomin album today. You want to talk about some textures? Jesus fucking Christ. We'll talk about that another day. All right, let's do your number 1 pick next, which is Bonobo, Fragments. This was a surprise to see. Tell me about this being your number 1 pick.
I have continuously gone back to this record all fucking year, man.
This came out the second week of January.
It came out the second week of January, and I have just consistently returned to it. I think I gave it a 7/8 when I reviewed it. It is very easily a 9. anytime, so I get in moods, and sometimes I like to match those moods, or sometimes when I want to get in moods, I will put on the music of what I want to feel like. And
Hmm.
I found myself this year wanting to feel serenity a lot, and Bonobo's Fragments really made it happen for me. It is it's a beautiful house record, man. It seems like it was painstakingly stitched together with these vocals that just are fucking, they're perfect, man. The vocal selections and the way that they are presented and structured in the album are just perfect to me. I don't know, man. It just spoke to me, and it was between my number two, which we haven't talked about yet, and this one. Yeah, man, it was a hard choice, but Bonobo's Fragments was my number one album for EDM this year. Easy.
You're not alone, man. The Academy seemed to have really liked this one as well. I believe it's nominated for Electronic Dance Album of the Year, and I believe Rosewood is nominated for Recording of the Year,
Well,
which you were speaking to the vocal arrangements. Man, the musical arrangements on this whole
oh,
album are
very
just
true.
as beautiful as the vocal one.
Very
Drink
true.
drink if we say beautiful during this album review. This is a very beautiful album. It's very quiet and subdued in a genre that is so often very loud. And I really enjoyed my time with it, and I would recommend it to any of our listeners who are fans of this genre. He is 22 years and 7 albums into his career, and he still sounds excellent. So
Yes.
props to Bonobo.
Oh man, yeah. It sucks that he's not going to win the electronic dance record of the year,
Oh, Beyonce's sweeping that.
because Beyonce is going to take it, and that just doesn't make it just bothers me like a lot. But this should win it, and I hope he gets the record of the year for Rosewood, because he deserves some recognition for this one, because it was uh, beautiful.
Did Black Coffee win last year? Who won
Oh
last year?
man,
I'll have to look it up. We'll do that another time. I think Black Coffee has won in the past, so I don't think his path
I
to
think
winning is impossible, but it's gonna be tough, man. I
if
could easily see Beyonce sweeping all of the categories she's in.
Black Coffee might also win a Grammy this year for Honestly Nevermind, because it was
Oh, that's
apparently.
right. He
But
would get, yeah, a credit Grammy.
yeah, not like a real one, but he'd be able to.
Not a real one. Not one of the ones Kanye peed on. Or he should, not one of the ones redacted peed on.
Oh man, no, it's I think Black Coffee did win last year, and Simultaneous was a great album. So I think that was
Yeah,
my number one EDM
fantastic.
album last year too.
It was. There was an Usher verse on that album or song, so I don't blame you, buddy. All right, man. We'll finish off our top 5 list with my pick for number one EDM album of the year, or albums, and your pick for number two, which is Royksopp's Profound Mysteries. I'm gonna say one, but we're gonna talk about the whole trilogy, okay? This has been my EDM album of the year since its release back in April. The Kavinsky and Alison Wonderland albums were very strong contenders, but after re-listening to all of these for the podcast, this is still without question my favorite EDM album of the year. And although the first entry in the series is my favorite, I'm including the entire trilogy as my number one pick because, as a collective work of art, this trilogy of albums is absolutely incredible. I've revisited it as recently as yesterday, and there are songs on each of them that could be EDM Song of the Year. It's incredible. They deserve all of the credit for this, man, and I think they more than earn this number one spot and number two spot on yours. How are you feeling about these albums?
Imagine sitting down and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to create Profound Mysteries. It's such a piece of art that I mean, talk about musical arrangements, man. I mean, they know how to
Good
do it,
Lord.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I'm gonna disagree with you there, buddy. I know that number one is it for you, but God, man, number two just spoke to me, and number three was great also. But I think for me it goes 2, 1, 3,
Okay.
as far as order for the Profound Mysteries trilogy.
There's no wrong order.
No, no, not at all. But it's so crazy to me that they decided that they were just gonna create the beautiful trilogy of just ethereal EDM music and just sweep a bunch of categories. I mean, this was a tough choice between this and Bonobo for me, but I think maybe I just had more time with Bonobo, but but yeah, man, I
Well, the good thing is I picked it, so you get to talk about it
there we
anyways.
go. Yeah, I really like this album, man. I think it deserves all of the flowers it's gonna get. I think this isn't nominated for anything, although it sure fucking should be.
It is not. I don't know if they were waiting until the trilogy was complete to submit for next year or if they submitted and just weren't considered. I'm not sure what happened there, but I agree. Easily should have been.
Easily.
Visually too, we were very big on the aesthetic that they locked in on for this weird fucking what were we calling it? Alien insects or
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where you look at it, the more you look at it, the less it makes sense, but the more beautiful it is at the same time.
yeah.
The artwork was great, down from even the singles. Even the singles had individual artwork. It was really wild,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah, yeah, they fucking went the extra mile for this. We appreciated it, and it gets the top spot on my list.
Yes.
You ready to talk about some honorable mentions that didn't make our list?
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Okay, man. We're gonna run through these in no particular order. First up, let's go Atlas. Carry it with you. You threw this one on your honorable mentions. How are you feeling about it now?
I like this album. It was one of those where I. It's funny. I did go back to this album a few times this year.
Mhm.
But anytime I wanted to feel the serenity, I kept going back to Bonobo. I would listen to half this album and then I'd be like, you know what, this isn't the vibe.
Nah.
And I know you didn't like this record, but I did, man. I thought it was really good. I've always liked Atlas's productions, and
Mhm.
I think that Atlas deserved an honorable mention.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. I think that this is an album we felt very differently about when we reviewed it. I've warmed up to it a little bit, but I still don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as you did. I will say Waterbug is a phenomenal track, though.
That is true.
Next up, let's talk about Fred Again, Actual Life 3. This album was not the boiler room bangers we were hoping for, but it turned out to be a really good album without any of that. And I haven't had enough time away from this one to really know how it's going to age with me, but I thought it was worth mentioning. How are you feeling about this one? Have you gone back to it?
Yeah, I've gone back to it once or twice, but it's one of those that I think it's worth mentioning just because I think we do have a really good talent on our hands.
Hmm.
With Fred again, I think I like him more as a live full set artist rather than a project album or single artist. But that is okay. I think this album was great. I think it's funny. I saw somebody post on Reddit today. I don't get the hype around Fred again, and I was the same way all year, man. I was or this is great or you know.
Yep.
It's he's funny like that, but there's no doubt nobody can ever say this kid's not talented. You know?
No, he's a you don't get it until you do type of artist. And when
Yeah.
you do, man, it's a beautiful thing.
Yep. I agree.
All right, another one we both had on our honorable mentions, Lane 8's Reviver. I feel like I was a little hard on this one when it dropped. I think I gave it a positive review, but it's great, and my review should have reflected that. Also, What Have You Done to Me is a perfect song.
Right.
So yeah, still not good enough to crack my top five, but shout out Lane 8, Reviver. You still listening to this one?
Oh yeah, I like Lane 8, man. I like this album. It's not my favorite of his. I think my favorite of his is still going to be Brightest Lights, followed very closely by Little, which I think is more of an EP, but it is what it is. This is
Favorite release?
Yeah, this is a really good album, man. I wanted to shout out to Lane 8 for a second. As soon as the pandemic started and everybody locked down, I don't know if you follow him on the socials, but I was on the socials back when everything first locked down, and
Hmm.
he was doing a live set a week. He was just, here's my living room. I'm gonna put the CDJ up, and my wife doesn't really like it, but you all need some music, and was just playing. He even had some like technical difficulties on the first one that I tried to tune into, but it was cool that he was just kind of like, you know what, fuck it, we all need love and music and house music right now, and really did it, man.
Him and David Guetta remixing Martin Luther King saved the U.S. during the pandemic, man. That's all we need.
It's all we needed. It's all we needed.
Dude, David Guetta ended racism. That's
He
fucking
sure did. He
crazy. With
sure
the
did.
worst drop of all time.
Can you believe it, man? Who would have thought it would have been David Guetta?
From nondescript city rooftop.
I'm going to throw that
All
in
right.
the show notes for anybody that doesn't understand what we're talking about. We're not going to address it on the air, though.
Should we throw the British kids dancing to drum and bass in the show notes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, man. Let's move on. Next up, we got Swedish House Mafia's Paradise Again. I threw this one on here. This is a good but disappointing album. I don't think either of us thought it would be a seminal release in the genre, but it fell short of whatever expectations I had for it. That said, every time I've circled back to it or a song from it shuffles on, it's a lot better than I remember it being when we reviewed it back in April. Have any of these songs come back across your ears since we checked it out?
Look, man, I have not revisited the full debut Swedish House Mafia record again. I've gone through with
Debut.
that's what that's what it is, right?
Oh, sorry. It took me a second. Yes,
I
it
have
is.
not. The Weekend song is great, and that's really all that I care about. To be honest with you, it was a pretty big letdown for me, and I think it's worth talking about at the end of the year for the genre as a whole. But I don't think that their comeback was exactly what anybody really expected or wanted. So.
Should they add Salvatore Ganache as a fourth member to just spice things up at this point?
You know what? Fuck it. I liked his album a lot better than I liked the Swedish House record. So
Yeah, you know what? Sub this, take this album off. We're gonna say check out Salvatore Ganache's Culturally Appropriate. That's a banger of an album that we reviewed on last week's episode. You should check that out as well.
sure did.
All right, my last honorable mention, I believe it was on your list too, and I believe you have the vinyl for this one, Tin Liquor's In Another Lifetime. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct.
It's gorgeous artwork. So even if the
Beautiful.
music on this was trash, you'd at least be able to display it on your wall. Good thing it's not. It's a great album, man. This is another one I wasn't really crazy about when it dropped, but it has grown on me with each subsequent listen.
It's a good album.
It's still not in my top five, but I think it was definitely an honorable mention. Very good album. Any extra thoughts on this one?
No, but I do have an extra thought on Tin Liquor. One of my favorite
Hit me.
memories, one of my favorite embarrassing memories is I had left work, was on my way home, was bumping some Tin Liquor. I think this was like 2 years ago. And I was just bumping some, and I was just getting into it, man. I was in my car, I was bopping my head, I was at a red light, my eyes were closed, you know. I was just fucking getting it, right? And then I look up, and one of my coworkers is sitting right at the red light, just busting up. Oh man, it was great. Shout out to Tin Liquor. Thanks for getting
You were
me
just
in
living your
zones.
truth, Brandon.
Hey, straight up.
All right, man. Let's get into a few EPs worth mentioning. I picked two for us to talk about. We have Zoo's Musical Chairs Mixtape Volume 1. This EP isn't as good as an album, so it might not fit perfectly into this category the way we imagined it, but
Right.
I thought it was worth mentioning. It was a surprise release back in June, and it's an uneven release at best. The first two tracks on it are really good. The middle three are okay, and the last three, or the last two, are among his worst, in my opinion. But everything he does is so uniquely him that it's hard not to keep paying attention to his releases because he's still capable of making great music. I thought there was some of that on here, not enough, but I'm still intrigued in the Zoo project. Are you?
Oh, absolutely. I like Zoo, man. Seeing
You
him a
bought
lot.
season tickets?
You know, man, I'll agree with you. Those last two tracks on the EP were some of his worst, but you know, even great artists have bad songs. I think every once in a while, and yeah, man, I like his music, and I don't know if I'm going to be returning too much to this. I actually listened to The Night Day today, so
As you should.
just randomly, somebody mentioned house music online, and I was like, you know what, I haven't listened to in a long time, and needed some Cocaine Model, you know.
Yeah, of course, of course. That song is so big. I think he posted a video like a few months ago of him performing it live, and he just dropped the beat, and the whole crowd just sang the entire song.
I'm pretty sure it has 80 million hits on Spotify. Maybe I'm lying
It's a
to you.
fantastic
Maybe
song.
it's just 8 million. Now I got to see.
Do you feel like it's
It is
slept on because
87
of
million
Faded?
hits.
Do you feel like it's a slept on or overlooked song because of Faded?
Uh, a little bit actually. Even though it's his top song on Spotify right now, it still has what is that? That is 100 million less hits. 200 million less hits than Faded does.
Yeah.
And Faded's a great song, don't get me wrong. And the year it came out, every DJ in the world at any festival was dropping it like they made it. But
Yeah. It was Animals, it was Levels, it was
yeah,
all of them.
yep.
Yeah.
But I think Cocaine Model, man, that's the track, dude.
That's a jam. My favorite, to no surprise of anybody, is Testarossa music featuring Gallant.
Yep.
And the Genesis series. Man, I hope we get another Genesis series next year. Give us that, Zoo. Give
Wasn't
the fans Genesis series 2. I think
wasn't
he
that
teased it,
the
right?
he did at one point, and then we got fucking nothing. He's very cryptic, that Zoo. When he's not selling $80 sandals, he's very cryptic. Isn't that the track that introduced you to Gallant and
Yes.
started your what's the word I'm looking for? Fandom of Gallant?
That's putting it mildly, but yeah.
I was gonna say love
Yeah.
affair, but you know.
For anybody that does not know, Gallant is my favorite artist right now of any genre and has been probably since 2016.
Probably since that dropped, right?
He is the best, man. I fucking love Gallant. But we are not here today to talk about Gallant. We got one more EP I want to talk to you about, and that is Spore's Cave. We had to have a little more drum and bass on this playlist.
Had to.
Yeah, man, it's safe to say that the first EP Spore released on Mousetrap lived up to the hype. I think I speak for both of us when I say that I just wish we got a little bit more of it. You know, all 4 songs were great. I just wish we were talking about this one in our albums of the year instead of EPs of the year. When's the last time you checked this one out?
I about a month ago. I think that Spore doesn't make John Gooch any money. I think Feed Me makes him money, and I think that Spore is really a passion project, and I think that really does shine through in the music. I mean, shit, I return to Caligo at least once a year.
Oh,
Spore's
right,
album,
yeah.
and man, it's just beautiful music, man. It's just so good. If it was a full album, it would probably be my top of the album leaderboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It would have been up there with Jason's Status. Before we get into our next category, which is Remix of the Year, I have a little category that I am just going to improvise on the spot. And that's kind of disappointing albums. First one that's coming to mind for me is Odessa. Is there any other big EDM album that came out? The Glitch Mob. Glitch Mob's another one.
I was just gonna say the Glitch Mob, man. It was a little weird. I think the most disappointing release was Matt Lange's Dichotomy. Is that what it is? Dichotomy?
Oh boy. Yeah. So honestly, I was surprised to not see that on your honorable mentions. I was like, oh, Brandon's for sure gonna throw Matt Lange on there.
I haven't revisited it. I haven't revisited it because of how terrible that rollout was. So
yeah, it did itself no favors.
But I now know why he did that.
Tell me.
He was releasing these songs and then releasing a breakdown of how he made them on YouTube for each track until he finished the album. And they're in-depth Pro Tool, Logic, and FL Studio like breakdowns of how he made the music, which is fascinating. He gets real nerdy about it, and I'm a big fan of that. I have not watched all of them. I watched 1 or 2 of them, and I was like, wow, he does 2 hours a song here. Like it's actually pretty impressive. So I'll throw one of those in the show notes.
I'm a big fan of that when artists do that. Disclosure does that a lot too. They'll break down how they make all their songs on YouTube and shit. And it's always really interesting to see them talk about like the insanely nerdy shit of making music, you know?
There was
and
this
how
one
deep you go.
Yeah, there's this one moment where he's just talking and he's like, all right, so for this part, what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to take this guitar and flip it around. And so he just breaks out his guitar, records a little fucking lick, throws it on the computer and like flips it upside down, and he plays the guitar backwards on his Pro Tools. And he's like, all right, so then we just add a little bit of reverb and a little bit of bass. And I was just like, holy shit, man, this sounds incredible. Like, This man's a genius.
Yeah, no, he's a great artist. It's not a great album, and that was the issue. But we will continue to follow and support Matt Lange on this podcast for sure. Will. All right, let's get into remixes of the year.
Oh, I have one more disappointing dance music.
Please hit me.
The most disappointing dance music album to me was Beyonce.
Oh my God. You really want to do this here?
No, I don't. I just really wanted to make the joke because it's not a dance record.
That one will be on our pop albums episode. We'll be talking about that there. I agree. It is not a dance record, but that is where the industry is, my friend.
Yes.
It's all about what category you submit to have the best shot at taking home the most hardware, is it not?
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying how it should be. I'm saying how it is.
Very true.
But all right, man, let's move on to remixes of the year here. I curated a few for us, and let's start by giving the guy some credit. Matt Lange, Ordinary Love, the Crystal Method remix. This one came out of fucking nowhere, and it was a banger. I still love this one. I'm kind of bummed there was nothing this good on the Crystal Method album we reviewed.
I know, right?
Or the Matt Lange album we reviewed. I don't think Ordinary Love made it on there, even the original version, which was my favorite release of his this year. So, yeah, shout out to Matt Lange. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It was a fucking banger from two artists that are very well known for making some bangers. So,
yeah. Next up, we got another fucking banger. These are all going to be bangers. Sam Smith and Kim Petras, Unholy, the Disclosure remix, because only Disclosure could have made me like that song. I think I said it was okay when we reviewed it. I quickly grew to hate it, and then I heard this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that fixed it."
Yep.
Disclosure and Sam Smith, please get married, have a throuple, because this music is incredible. Have you checked this one out again recently?
Not terribly, not like in the last week or two, but it's been coming in. It's been coming up on my Spotify pretty recently, or pretty often. And I mean, dude, it's so much better than the original, man.
They killed it. It should have been
it's
the
like
original.
Disclosure has like a button that they just press fix, and then Sam Smith's voice, and the music is just like, oh, it's so much better now. It's
that machine that Stan's dad uses on South Park to turn into Lord.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's talk about that one. Will be your one. So let's talk about this one. We got Kylie Minogue, Can't Get You Out of My Head, the Peggy Gao remix. This one I was very surprised to see pop up, and even more surprised at how fucking mind-blowingly awesome it was. Peggy's a big favorite of ours here on the podcast, and I think she killed it with this one. What are your thoughts on it?
We didn't need another remix of it, but boy did I not know we wanted it.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. You don't want another remix of it. If it's going to be the best remix of it, sure.
Right, exactly.
All right, man. Next up, we will talk about one of both of our favorites. This is Lizzo, About Damn Time, the Purple Disco Machine remix. This is nominated for a Grammy for this recording specifically, which is insane. Good for Purple Disco Machine. I've been loving this one, and I did not know, but you've been loving this one a lot more. It's your remix of the year.
It sure is, man. This is a straight up banger.
It is. I kind of hope that they work together a lot more, like on an official capacity instead of a remix capacity in the future.
Right.
My remix of the year is The Weeknd's How Do I Make You Love Me? It's the Ingrosso and Ganacci remix. This one, I had never heard of Salvatore Ganacci before this remix, and I quickly hit the follow button like 5 seconds into it. The bass on this song is fucking incredible. I don't know, man. This one, just something about it. Every time I go back, I'm like, it's so simple. Like, I don't know what it is that keeps me coming back to it, but it's so infectious. And I think it's really just the tone of it. It's all mixed perfectly. It's sequenced. It moves at the right tempo. It's just a great remix. And that is why it is my remix of the year. Any thoughts on this one?
It's really good.
Thank you, Brandon.
That's it. It's very good, man. It's very good.
Yeah, no, that one's fucking awesome. I recommend you guys check out all 5 of those songs. They are fantastic, and I think all 5 are on our playlist right now. It is the best EDM songs of the year. We will be archiving this as our best EDM songs of the year playlist. So be sure to follow along with that if you want to revisit it at any point.
So I have before we end this podcast, John, I have a audible to throw at you here. Who do
Hit
you
me.
think are headliner worthy acts in the EDM scene right now?
Headliner worthy. What are we talking about? What size festival?
Well,
What
let's
festival?
call it an Insomniac festival that's not EDC.
Okay. So maybe a notch below like an ultra.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think
I think
it's
Porter.
okay?
I think Rezz.
All right.
I think in 2 years, SG Lewis and Purple Disco Machine.
Nice.
Flight facilities overseas, maybe?
Maybe.
It's tough though, man, to headline a festival and be what they're investing in. Like, yeah, it's you want a Swedish house or something like that, but if you're hinting that there's not a lot of household names in EDM right now, I think you are correct.
That's kind of what I'm hinting at. I did a little experiment here when I was kind of looking into the state of EDM as a whole, and looking at Escape. I looked at Escape from Wonderland this year. I don't even think it's called. I think it's called Escape Halloween nowadays.
Mhm.
Happened in Southern California and San Bernardino. The headliners are Tiesto still. It's just been
Mhm.
Tiesto for 30 fucking years. That it doesn't make sense to me. Do you
We're
think?
having trouble creating new stars in every genre. And I didn't really think about it in EDM until now, but you're right. It's still Tiesto, Above and Beyond, Armin, Deadmau5, Cascade. They're still the guys, you know?
Yeah, I
Like they
mean,
are still the top of the top in terms of the numbers they do. Their weekly shows have a lot to do with that.
that's true.
But
That's true.
um, but yeah, man, like you see footage from Rezz's shows, like she's there.
She
She can
definitely
do
is
it,
there.
but
Will she draw the crowd? Question mark
I
is
mean,
really
Porter
the
created his own festival and it sells
because
out
of
every
this.
year. So yes, he can easily do that. But yeah,
So
there's a need for another guy to ascend to that top level, and it has to be more than like a big remix that they did or a big single or a big production for a pop star. Like Io blew up after like the violence and Grimes and all of that
mhm.
stuff, but like that wouldn't sustain him, you know, like he had to make other music to do that, and he was starting to do that. Sadly, didn't get the chance to keep doing it. But like I can't imagine Io headlining a major festival, you know, based on that success. And that was a big, majorly successful song.
I,
So
I mean, I
I don't know.
guess,
Who would you
man.
put?
I think Tiesto hasn't done anything interesting since 2009's Kaleidoscope, and somebody can tell me I'm wrong for that,
He
but
also has an album coming out next year.
it's probably going to be really generic. Um,
Oh, we'll let you know when we review it.
I mean and I think Insomniac as a festival does a really good job at this. They don't put the logos on their lineup posters. They don't even put them in headliner, sub-headliner, undercard format. They do them all. Here's the alphabetical list of the artists that were, that are going to be here at our festival. I think Insomniac does a really good job at that. But I mean, at just this festival, it was Tiesto, Eric Prydz, Marshmello, Deoro, Martin Garrix, and Alesso.
It's the same people that play the Vegas clubs.
It's the same people that play the Vegas clubs. It's the same people that have been headlining festivals for at least a decade now. I mean, Eric Prydz has been making music since the late 90s. Tiesto's been making music since the late 90s. Marshmello was on Fortnite. So, I mean, I guess I get that for the younger crowd. Um, I don't know, man. It just doesn't, I don't know.
Well, it's such a niche genre. It hit that mainstream peak where at Coachella you would see Swedish House and Cascade and Tiesto on the main stage. But I think for the most part, with a few exceptions, that's over because artists that can draw 60,000, 80,000, like an Excision, they don't need to go to your festival. Like they
That's
just
very
put
true.
their own show on now.
Yeah.
And like Eric Pride's, like he has his own fucking internal lighting, sound, like everything is his. Like you're not offering him much other than a venue at that point, you know?
Yeah, he's doing his Hollow at Ultra, which I think is pretty neat. He was just booked for the
Yeah, I
Hollow
saw
show.
that.
It I don't know. I guess it rubs me the wrong way. I think the Chemical Brothers are still headliners. They've been doing it for
Yep.
30 years,
Yep.
but at least they do something interesting every other year. I mean, they put out No Geography in 2019, and that was a fantastic record. Tiesto did
Yeah.
not, nor did Prids. To be completely honest with you, I'm more impressed with his Rezz D. But I thought it was an interesting thought experiment here.
I got one more for you.
Let's go.
And this is kind of a heat check as to where they are now. If Justice was announced as the headliner of a major festival, what do you think the reaction would be? Would
Overwhelmingly
people,
positive.
you don't think younger people would be disappointed by that? Like, you don't think that they're not relevant enough to like the younger crowd?
That I think is a problem. However, I think that if they were to be booked, the younger people are more open to
Sure.
exploring
Yeah.
more. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that I think if Justice headlined a major festival, and it wouldn't be an Insomniac festival, it would be like a indie kids festival. I think. But I don't know. I think Justice are up there. I honestly think Odessa is still right there, even though they put out a crappy album this year.
Their
I think
live show is still their live show.
it's
Yep.
incredible, man. It really
Yeah.
is incredible. I mean, we all watched Swedish House Mafia's closing headlining set at Coachella. Did you think that was a headlining set?
No, I mean it was like that.
I
That's
mean,
the headlining set
categorically,
of
it was
10.
a headlining.
It was
set,
a
but
dated headlining set, to be honest with you. It was a very like
I
this.
agree.
This would have been cool 10 years ago. It's not very cool now.
I don't know. I just wanted to cool. I just wanted
I
to do a
liked it,
thought
man.
experiment.
Thank you. Yeah. We don't have any more categories per se, but I do want to look ahead to next year and kind of go over our most anticipated albums for next year within the genre.
Let's
We
go.
don't have a lot of candidates to talk about here. I looked over the calendar for next year, and the only upcoming releases in the genre I saw confirmed so far is SG Lewis coming out in January and Tiesto coming out in February. I'm excited for SG Lewis. I am. We will check out the Tiesto album. I know you feel probably the same way. Uh, Obviously, SG Lewis could end up being album of the year in the genre next year. But are there any other artists who haven't announced albums next year that you're hoping we see?
The Chemical Brothers. I have a feeling they're going to tour the United States. I have a feeling they're going to be at Coachella, and that probably means that there's a new record coming out.
Ooh, I mean, a new Chemical Brothers record would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe a K5 album?
I mean, we're definitely going to get something, right? I mean, it's. I think it's more than an EP at this point, right?
I've gotten 4 songs.
I'd love to
so hopefully.
see. I'd love to see a K5 album, a Cascade album, and a Dead Mouse album. I think that'd be pretty cool. Do we think Justice has anything else up their sleeve, or do we think that they're
It seems
done?
like Gaspard's busy. I would imagine that they've been working on some stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's out of the question. No. When was their last album? 2016?
Woman,
Yeah,
yeah.
2016. So, yeah, they're due. I got one for you, which
yeah.
you're going to be kind of weird about.
Flume?
Skrillex.
Yeah.
Skrillex.
I love how you say I'm going to be kind of weird about it because I really didn't like Recess, man. I think that
Yeah,
my name.
fair.
I still think that My Name Is Skrillex is the best thing he's put out, even though I really enjoyed.
I didn't
Scary
like that
Monsters.
or the Jack U album. It's My Name Is Skrillex, Scary Monsters, Bangarang. That is the Skrillex you and I like,
Correct.
bonded over and are still fans of to this day. But all previews of his newer music have been fantastic.
Yes.
It seems like we're at least going to get Rumble in the next month or two, which thank fucking God.
Yep.
I don't know. Anybody else you can think of?
We just got a Spore EP. We just got a Feed Me album last year.
Yeah.
Is Disclosure due?
They released one in 2020. They did Energy, but they're such a high output group, I wouldn't doubt it. Since then, they've released Waterfall, which is excellent, and
Right.
they've released that song with Zed that I was not crazy about. It had like a fucking sentence for the title. But
Right.
yeah, I could see them doing another one, but I think that those are the main ones. I got an up and coming one for you, and that's Cloud with a K. This
Cloud
is
with
an
a K.
album I have been checking out a lot lately. They released an album in 2020 called Autonomy that I've had on repeat lately. I don't think we've talked about it,
No, I don't think
but
so.
I would really like to see more from him, them. I think we're headed towards a new Lastlings album as well.
Nice. I really
They
like
released that new
Lastlings.
single. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are fantastic.
I'm trying to think if there's any others that I can think of. Nothing off, no, nothing really off the top of my head here, man. I mean, we've gotten some really great electronic albums over the last few years, and I think we're gonna.
Yep.
I mean, I still listen to Nurture often. You know, like
Same, same.
um,
Well, I mean, that's the thing is we're so used to having to wait 5 to 10 years for any artist in EDM to release an actual new full-length album. It doesn't have to be that way. Porter
right.
could release an album every 2 to 3 years. It doesn't have to be a 7 year process, you know? So
Yeah,
I feel like more than being surprised by a long dormant artist, we should just hope for higher output as long as the quality maintains.
of course. Yeah. I mean, when did Polarity came out from Boys Noise? Was that last year?
That was last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Dude,
he's
last year was insane.
yeah,
But
man.
this year was fun too. Looking back,
It
man,
was.
not quite as good, but some real winners that'll be in our rotation and that you and I will be talking about for years to come.
Yeah, man. I
Um,
agree.
yeah, dude, this was fun. Thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week to talk about our favorite pop albums of the year. If you want more Brandon's Face content, you can find us on all major podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's Face, give us a follow, say hi. We'll see you all next week.
Peace.
Peace.